Welcome to Famous When I'm Dead. I'm Sam King Davis. So if what we're doing brings value to your work and brings value to your life, support us on Patreon. The link is in the description below. Today I'm excited to introduce you to one of my top 3 favorite caricature artists in the world. His style is completely unique in the world of caricature. The type of exaggeration that he pulls out is so unique and creative. It can't be really found in any other person's style. And he's been a huge influence to me in the way that I approach live caricatures and the way that I look at exaggeration. So without further ado, I give you Mac Garcia. Hey, it's nice to finally meet you, man.
Yeah, good to meet you too.
Yeah, I've been following your work. I've been following your work for a really long time. I joined ISCA about 5 years ago, and then I found your work, and then I didn't see you at ISCA. You were busy raising some kids there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I've just been following your stuff ever since. But I've been waiting to meet you. I saw your Caricature 101 video when I first got started. So yeah, cool. Nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, good to meet you too. I haven't met you in person, but yeah, I've seen your work, and I think is it not true? Like the last week, maybe week and a half, you've been really experimenting on your work. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, I did an Eminem piece, and then I've been playing around in the Caricature barbecue sessions.
Yeah.
I think I've kind of always experimented a lot, but yeah, especially lately.
That's good.
Yeah.
I applaud you. That's great. It takes some courage to do that. The hard part is doing that live. I think that's where the real test comes, where you're doing it in front of someone, and your livelihood may take a dive on that, and then also the response from that person that you're drawing. That's a temptation to not experiment fully.
Yeah. I mean, your exercise about leaving out a feature was something that actually specifically that is what I've been playing with a lot lately. I just find that that's like the fastest shortcut to forcing you to really figure things out. It's like a challenge every time. It doesn't matter what the face is. There's like some are more challenging than others, but yeah, it's a challenge every time.
Yeah, it's good.
So how's things going in your life, man? Things going in Houston?
Yeah, Houston's doing good. I live in a small city right outside of Houston. It's called Spring. It's busy, and people are still working because of COVID. I stay busy, and so it's going well. Our kids are homeschooled, so they don't really see anything different. They're used to staying home and working from here. And my wife homeschools them, and so, but things are going well, going smooth.
You mentioned that you had to take up a 9 to 5. Are you still drawing, or is it some separate job?
Yeah, I'm still drawing on the weekends, but that 9 to 5 job, that's not art related. No.
Oh, okay.
It's we do mitigation for fire and water losses in homes and commercial. building. So when they have a water leak, we go in and assess that and mitigate that. So
Cool. So can we talk a little bit about how you got started with your art career? I read your bio, but maybe we could kind of have a little conversation about that.
sure. So I started doing caricatures at a theme park. It was called Astro World. It's no longer here in Houston, but they shut down. And I started there when I was in high school, and it was I was turning 16 or 17, and my mom's like, you got to get a job, and you really should draw. Like you should go draw caricatures. I had no interest in it. At the time, I had a few years. Middle school, I took 1 year in art in middle school, and then I started taking art in high school. But I've always drawn, doodled, but it wasn't like cartoony. It wasn't something that I kind of, I guess, imagined and created. It was more of just replicating something small, and I made it larger. I just was into shading and acrylic. I participated in what's called, I think they called it the rodeo contest and stuff here in Texas. And when I was in high school, we would go out and take pictures of livestock, and then we would enlarge them using a graph and things of that nature, and then we would just use Prismacolor to realistically draw that out. But I had really no interest in cartoons or being creative and or making things up as far as starting from scratch and making characters or whatnot. And um, so I wasn't into comics or anything. And so when I thought about that, I was like, I have no interest. I don't like it. But my mom forced me. She just kept pushing. She said, you have to get a job there. And she took me up there one Saturday or whatever, one weekend. And we had season passes there every week. Like we'd go there every weekend as kids. And so, but she took me there. She talked to the owner of one of the booths there, and she got me a job there. He said, yeah, you can come this particular day. We're gonna start training. So we trained for 2 weeks.
What do you think that motivation was? Why did she want you to do caricatures so bad?
Because I would always draw like these little stickers. There were little lowrider stickers and just stickers that I would get at grocery stores, and I would always take those, and I would enlarge them, and they were typically like these lowrider cars and whatnot, and I would draw them, I would color them. I guess I was a bored kid, but I was always drawing something. But it was 100% realistic, 100% portraits, 100% animals, just anything I could find on a paper that was small, I would enlarge it. So she knew I'd love to draw and do that. So, um, and even as a kid, like the coloring contests that they would do, where you would use Crayolas and color this pumpkin, I would always win those contests in elementary and things like that. But so that's why she just kind of forced me into that job there. Um, but I started to really enjoy it after I got to meet a lot of people there, and I was young, so but I enjoyed the atmosphere, the theme park. I would go there all the time, and but so I started to really enjoy it after like maybe the first year or two. In the sense where I was growing in the art field itself, but more just I just enjoyed it, and I started to just kind of try to learn as much as I could while I was there, and I wasn't just being forced to work there. I was learning.
There's a TED talk. It's called "Don't Follow Your Passion," and the thesis of that talk is like his his encouragement is that find something that you're moderately good at, or that you're like at least willing to spend a little bit more time on than you would other activities, and then once you start to get good at it, then eventually your passion kind of grows for it. So I guess it kind of sounds like that's what happened with you. Like you weren't really into it at first, but when the atmosphere and then the fact that your skills were developing like kind of got you more and more passionate or interested in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. That makes sense. That's kind of what happened to me. It doesn't happen to everyone, but yeah, like, if you look at my artwork, the 8, my mom probably has it, but from when I was 8 till 17 or 18, everything was realistic. And I remember being frustrated seeing other people do other stuff, and they're making things out of their head, and I can't. I have to have something in front of me, and I have to be realistic. I have to draw exactly how it is. I just can't. I didn't have the mindset for that, and so I knew it would be a hard thing. But then I just really started to enjoy it and love it. So, and then the fact that I could make a living is really super, like that you can make a lot of money, especially at events. And that was very enticing, and why I ran to that and started following that, and just fell in love with that. But slowly the money side started to not really help me artistically grow in that. And then I wanted to start growing in I guess, the skill. And as I dug deep, I was like, man, it's going to take this. But if I do this, it's really going to hurt me financially. But I started, I started to really dig deep into it, I think, because of the money. And then as I started to go into the art realm, I realized that would suffer a little bit. And I chose to just stick towards just the love of the art, and just practicing it and exaggerating more, and learning how to create that likeness.
Yeah, so that kind of brings up the question, because like when you're working at a theme park, you're doing very like cookie cutter type stuff. And you mentioned that in your Caricature 101 talk too. You showed some like profiles that you were doing. So what happened in between drawing so realistically and then going to where you're at now? Because right now you're known as probably one of the top three like wild exaggerators. So how did that happen? That's a big shift.
Yeah, it's a big shift. I think a combination of two things. One was I went to my first ISFIC convention in San Antonio, and it was 3 hours for me, so I had really no excuse to go. So when I went there, I was really exposed to a lot of other caricature artists, and a lot of different styles. Um, so I was just mind blown, and inspired to say, man, you could take a face like that and do this. And so I just started, growing in that. And it was sometime also. So the second thing was, so it was that. And then the second time was I think that helped. The second thing was sometime before that convention, I went to like a gig, and it seems funny, but it was, I remember that day to be like, man, you know what? I'm going to start doing that. I was drawing at an expo, and I was drawing kind of mild, and I was like, man, I'm gonna just go crazy. I'm gonna draw exaggerated. I'm just gonna go all out. I've got a long line here, and plus I need to go to the restroom. So like I need this crowd to like dissipate. I need to go fast, and I'm gonna exaggerate fast, exaggerate differently than like I'm gonna go from night to day. I've been drawing, because I've been drawing for that company at that expo since, maybe it might be 15 years now.
Oh, so your own company, you were drawing for somebody at the expo.
Correct. I was drawing for a company at an expo, and they used me to draw people into that booth, and they do like safety. Is that my house? I hear a noise. So I was drawing. So it must have been maybe year 10 or year 6 or something with them, and I was like, well, I've been drawing like this, and I'm just gonna just change it up. I'm gonna go fast, and I need to go to the restroom. So hopefully some people in line would just like leave, and
yeah, they're like, I don't want that. I don't want that.
Yeah, I don't want that, because he just switched up on us, and I'm just gonna go do something else.
Yeah.
Because they give a lot of free stuff there at those events. So I just went at it. I just went, and the crowd just erupted, and the energy was heavy. They were loving it. The straight line turned into like this crowd, and they were fighting to get first. I was next, and it was just crazy. And I was like, man. And I still I had to take a break. The line never got short, and it never does. And I still went to the restroom, and came back, and I kept drawing like that.
Were you doing color at that time?
At that time, I was only doing black and white. If you look at my expo drawings, you'll see just shading and just black and white. And I think it wasn't until I got a year after that I started coloring. But
so that was like right after you went to ISCA, you mean, or was that before?
it was really close to before or sometime after. I don't remember. I don't remember exactly what year, but it was those two things that really, kind of, I guess, propelled me to draw like more exaggerated and just take more chances.
Were you, at that time with the black and whites, were you using what was the marker that you were using?
I was using like a Marquette, and then I was also using like a Prismacolor black pencil that I would just sharpen with an X-Acto blade right there on the easel. And so
that was is that how you shaded when you were doing those quick black and white ones?
So I shaded with the graphite pencil, but I was using the Prismacolor like a Prismacolor pencil, like with the wooden stick, not the stick, but the wooden pencil. Mm-hmm. And I would just sharpen it with an X-Acto blade, so that way it had all these little edges in it, and so it wasn't a fine point. So I would just kind of sharpen it with that, but I was using a Prismacolor pencil to create the lines, to do the line work, and then a graphite stick to do all the shading.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Cool. The work that you put up from your live events is so crazy. I guess it's kind of about the difference between like likeness and exaggeration. Like sometimes I'll look at your live stuff and it kind of like captures something in the person, and then other times it looks like the likeness is totally off. But it's hard to tell because you're not there with the person and speaking, and hearing their voice and watching them move and everything. So how does that, has it always just been a crowd like that? Like it always, that energy is always there ever since you changed your mindset on it?
So two things. There's a lot of, that happens a lot where I look at the picture. Let's say I took a picture of that caricature, and I look at it the next day or whatever. It crosses my feed, and I'm like, no, that doesn't really look like I failed in that one, right? It doesn't really look like it. So I'll have those, especially if the reference is there. But at the moment, at that time, that's what I was feeling for that person. I can look at some artwork that I drew even during that time where I was deciding to draw exaggerated. Those are just, in my mind, at that time, I was like doing something out of the norm. But it might have been something that, looking back now, I'm like, man, it was really a small change that I can barely tell. But I think when I'm at that moment, I'm in there, I'm in front of the person, I see the energy, and the way I feel, how I'm feeling that moment really affects what I'm going to be drawing. I read that in a book called The Art Spirit. And so like it really helps like the artist understand like you're gonna produce like how you're feeling is what's gonna show up on that page. So if you're emotionally hurt, or if you're emotionally on a high, or if you're hungry or sleepy or whatever it may be, that your artwork is gonna be an effect of that. And so when I look back a year, a certain picture, it's usually because I'm just feeling a certain way that time. So it could be a little bit of both. It could be the energy that I saw and that likeness. That's what I saw, and then maybe also the picture that I've taken. The reference may not look like that person from a computer standpoint if you're looking at it. I know that happens sometimes. But likeness in general, at that time, when I'm looking back, I'm like, you know what? At that time, that's what I felt that person looked like. And so it might not look like that person right now for me. I could make a different choice, and it would look differently. But I think the thing to think about is, what does the artist see in that person at that particular time? And if they feel there's a likeness, then that's what counts, and that's what matters at that time, because there could be the subject, him or herself, can say that doesn't look anything like me, and that's great. They may have a misunderstanding. They may not, they may have been forced to sit down. But the issue, I think, is what does the artist see? Do they feel like that's what that person looks like? Because it's essentially we're looking for an interpretation of the artist. Like what does the artist see in that person? Draw me. We're supposed to draw someone how we feel they look, not necessarily how they look in a portrait. And so we have to make changes and change. Now we may fail and make the wrong choices, given the definition of it. And so we may have the wrong definition in our mind, and we're making the wrong choices. But that's a separate topic. But I think it comes down to the artist. If they see a likeness, then that's what matters at the time.
Yeah, so that's actually leads me to the next question, which, referring back to your 101 talk, you talked a little bit about like thinking, like having the right thinking before you start drawing, like looking at the subject and then having the right mindset. But to me, it seems like with your live stuff, you mentioned that a while back I messaged you, you mentioned that you do them in about 3 minutes. To me, it seems like you have to do more feeling. Like it's more about how you feel, like the energy that you feel. You don't really have much time to think in 3 minutes, especially if you're using color, right? So yeah. I guess my question is like, if you could kind of draw a distinction between what you mean by the thinking and the actual feeling when you make one of these crazy exaggerations.
Yeah, I think what I mean when I say, have the right thinking, the right mindset, is it comes to a root issue, and I think problem that we may have in our industry. The thinking is more of a heart and your mindset even before you show up to the gig. Before you show up, when you're going to do something custom, anything. I think the mindset going into it, as you're cropping your pages, your pictures on your screen, and you're getting them ready and you're getting your paper, I think the mindset as you go into that, you're thinking that's crippling, or it can be very, very helpful. So if I'm getting suited up and I'm setting up my easel for a gig, my mindset could be, man, I've got this agent. She just gave me my check and she's walking around here. Man, I wanna make sure she's happy. I wanna make sure that I'm drawing something that is less exaggerated. If I go into a gig like that, my mindset, what I feel about that person, all the theories that I've learned, the nuts and the bolts and the choices are irrelevant. I will throw them out of the window because my thinking is wrong. My mindset is wrong. My heart is at the wrong place. I'm thinking about like cookie cutters, and that's why you can go to an ISCA convention and see people drawing with such exaggeration. And then when you see their work on Instagram or Facebook live, they go back to their normal stuff because they may have the wrong thinking. Like their motives behind that gig, that custom work is, man, I have someone on my email that is requesting this. I'm giving them a discount. I know what they like because they sent me an example. And I'm saying this from experience. They send me an example of someone that drew them 10 years ago. They're gonna like that, so I have to draw something like that. Plus, I have my bills coming up in 2 weeks, so this custom drawing would really help my bank account. So all that is part of the thinking in my mind. When I think, man, so that's why in like 101, I'm spending 20 minutes or 10 minutes just going through like good thinking and wrong thinking, and it really has nothing to do with theories or choices. It has something to do with the motive or the artist has as they come into a gig or a custom drawing. Because like it or not, like that has a huge like impact on what you do trees. Like you won't be even thinking about energy, feeling. You're just gonna go right back to your sketching. You're gonna go right back to your just norm. Because there's no ISCA around, no one's watching over the shoulder. You have no one to compete with. Everybody here is not really an artist. They really don't know what a character. In fact, they don't want you to exaggerate. If you took a poll, so you're just gonna smooth. You're just gonna go right into drawing what many call cookie cutters, or just something without exaggeration.
Yeah, that's I'm experiencing that actually on the Charles Bridge because I work on this. It's like a landmark bridge. It's like a 700-year-old bridge, and it's a big tourist attraction here. And luckily, I had a good month in August. But anyway, everyone up there has been drawing up there for like 30 something years. So they came right after the Velvet Revolution, the fall of communism in Central Europe, and so they've been making like money hand over fist, making mediocre caricatures for like 30 years. So when I came up there, like fresh out of ISCA, they're telling me like it's not going to work, it's not what people want, like it's too exaggerated. One guy called them Americanisms, like there's all these kind of like negative things about it, these doubts. And then the first month I just crushed it. Like it was like, because everyone is doing essentially the same drawing, like real mild exaggeration, kind of like a fast portrait,
Yeah.
And
that's surprising that you crushed it. When you say crushed it, what do you mean by that? Like,
I mean, people were coming to me saying
they were enjoying it.
Say what?
They were enjoying it.
Oh yeah, I mean there were crowds, and they're like that kind of like the giggles, like people stand, it's like. Sometimes if you're drawing cookie cutters, people might say, "Oh, ha ha ha," like a little, but it's more authentic like that. That like kind of, you can feel the authenticity of the laughter, and you can hear it, and the explosions, like when you show the drawing and like the crowds exploding and the customers are exploding with laughter, like wow, what an awesome feeling, man.
Yeah, that is amazing. Now I'm surprised that you said it went well. I mean, what those guys were telling you, those artists, those are true statements that I've heard over here time and time again. That's not going to work. That's not what people like. That's not what the agents are going to like. And that same artist telling me, hey, I need you now, like talking to me firm. I need you. This is a gig that we're doing together. This is my gig. I need you to draw like this, not like what we talked about. And so, like, those are tough conversations. And those are truths. They're not lying. They're telling something true. Like that is actually that's not a lie. And so, but to have that experience where people are actually liking it, that's encouraging to me, knowing that those are experiences that I'm having. But sometimes it doesn't happen all the time like that. There are theme parks that people go to, or carnivals that they actually like that cookie cutter stuff, and so there could be days where that doesn't happen. And so the question is this: should we exaggerate? Even though that's something that should so hardly say yes, not just for the artist, because the artist will grow if they do that, if they choose that. But goodness, like every piece you send out, every piece that you draw, that goes to someone on someone's wall. It teaches that person what a character looks like. It teaches their kid. Oh, cool! What is that? It's a caricature. You're giving someone, you're teaching someone what is a caricature. And if you drew a cookie cutter, wow, you're just spreading that disease, that thinking. It's going far. And then that person moves 5 years and goes to Chicago or wherever, and she meets an artist and goes, "Oh, I had one of those 5 years ago. Look how it looked." Man, that can be so discouraging if they're showing an artist that is trying to grow and they're showing them your caricature that you drew last. I guess that's my fear. I've got thousands of caricatures that I drew back then that are just plain cookie cutter, and some are on purpose. A lot of them are on purpose, and some of them are just on accident. As I was growing, that's just what happens. You have to get a good amount underneath you where you feel comfortable. You can start taking chances. But goodness, I'm still ashamed of those. I don't like those. Like they're out there teaching people what caricatures look like, and they're just not. So I'd rather have a failed choice where I'm exaggerating and it's clear people sees it and goes, nah, that's an exaggeration, but it's a failed, versus something that looks like the person in everyone's mind, but there's no clear distinction of exaggeration or choices, or removal of a feature.
Any of your own like
Yeah.
energy in it.
Yeah, exactly. So
Like,
I'd rather have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm surprised that you had that experience. That's good. That's encouraging. But don't be shocked. Like that's an actual truth. Like people are like that these days, and they're not lying to you. That's a truth.
Yeah. What you said about, doing those cookie cutters and like sending them out and kind of teaching people, that I look at it the same way. I mean, we are responsible for making the style, like we're the artists, we're the style makers. It's not really up to the audience to choose like what the style is. They can obviously choose which artist they want to go with or what style that they like, but on an individual basis, the way I look at it is like, um, I don't really care like what. Obviously, we have to take into account what people want or what they're willing to buy, so that obviously that affects it to a certain extent. But for me, I try to put that as like not even a priority. The priority is like real expression, really capturing that moment, really capturing that energy, really taking a chance. Because when I'm taking chances and I'm taking a risk, that energy comes through, and that's really what makes the drawing more interesting.
Yep.
So I really feel like it's our responsibility to make the style.
I agree. Yeah.
The that's my other question about like hitting the likeness and not. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about like structure and rules, versus experiments and taking chances and kind of breaking the rules, and how you come to terms with that. I bring that question up because I think one of the more interesting things about the 101 talk that you gave is that you taught from Tom's book, The Mad Art of Caricature, but your style is like crazy exaggerated compared to his. So I found it interesting this time when I watched it, because I've shown Tom some really crazy exaggerations, and he's like, well, I don't think that's caricature because I can't recognize that person right away. So how do you come to terms with like what you've learned about rendering things more realistically versus like doing crazy experiments and breaking the rules?
Yeah, I think I don't know if he covers it, but that may be something that I may disagree with Tom. I think he does mention it, but like I mentioned earlier, the realistic. I'm sorry. Let me go back. The likeness, it comes from the artist. Like so, if I'm looking at one of your pieces, I'm going to tell you, hey, what stood out to you? What was unique to you? What did you feel that person? What was unique about them? And you may say a feature, and then I'm gonna once I get in your head, I'm gonna look at that and go, man, that makes total sense. That's great. That's how you can look at a piece of work like Nate's, Nate Cap, or Eric, and you can go, man, they're feeling some like intense energy, and they saw something maybe I didn't see, but I'm gonna focus on what they felt was unique and different because their mind is they see things differently. And if I'm going to be telling them, hey, I don't think you got the likeness there because that wasn't recognizable. I should be asking. I think, was it recognizable to Nate? Right? Was it recognizable to Eric? Does Eric feel that piece was recognizable to them? And that's where I'm going to go. And I'm going to look. I'm going to look at. I'm going to apply those principles, those theories. Did he follow those principles and theories? Now, principles and theories, they can change, and there'll be new ones coming out, I'm sure. And they're meant to be doing that. Like that's what our art form does. It kind of encourages that. So when someone comes out and says, I've got this theory. And it helps me create a likeness or choose a type of level to go in a direction where it increases the exaggeration because I've chosen a certain feature that I think expresses her likeness. Then great, let's teach me that. I want to learn that because our art form, it's in the creative realm where we're changing things and we're making decisions that aren't there, and they're coming out of our mind. So I think recognizability, it's based on the artist. So I would rather get into that person's mind. Hey, listen, if you felt like that person had a small nose, why didn't you do this or that? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And so they may not have made that nose, as small as it could be, and helping them grow in that way. Because a lot of like Nate stuff, or Eric, even others, even myself, like sometimes I don't feel like it had much recognizability. If they didn't have the sample next to it or mention who it was, I wouldn't have recognized it. But ultimately, I think recognizability belongs to the artist. I think I'm in error if I say, hey, I don't think I recognize that. So I think you need to work on it. They may not, and because I wasn't there. One, two, I'm not in their head. They may see something. So if I'm telling someone, hey, draw what you feel, and then they draw what they feel, and then I say that you missed that one, then I'm not being totally honest or accurate with what I'm encouraging that guy to do. Because it starts with that person. It starts with that artist. Draw what you feel, and here are some basic principles. Here are some theories. Take off, and that's so encouraging, because you can take those theories and principles to anyone, and someone that's just starting, they can take off with this crazy new style that will inspire all of us. Like, everyone will shock us, and that artist may not have never seen our works or anyone's work in ISCA. Never. They don't know any names, yet they're going crazy in that realm. And we shouldn't be stopping that. We should be encouraged and inspired by that, and go, man, that's a crazy style. We shouldn't suppress that. If that's what he feels, that's great. That's wonderful. So I think it starts off with the artist, what they see and feel. And one thing you had mentioned, the second thing was his style is different than mine. I can't tell you how many artists I've given that book out so many times. I've encouraged, and I'll continue. I've got a few still here, and so I think what happens is that the artist will get that book, and they'll start tracing. They'll go straight to page 12, 17. They'll go to the chapters that have the eyes and the mouth and the hair, and they'll start practicing the eyes and the mouth and the hair. And sometimes when you're starting off, that could be okay. I remember doing that when I started. But for someone that's in depth studying and they want to grow, and they take that book, that's not really what I would encourage them to do. I don't think Tom ever says you should trace my stuff. But I think a lot of times when he's drawing someone on there, or he places a caricature that he drew a while back on there, I think it's really to just emphasize his point that he's making on that page. When it comes to recognizability, and he puts a musician on there without a face, just the hair and all the accessories, I think he's making a point there. And when he starts talking about the balloon theory, and he puts a celebrity on there, and he stretches that head in a certain way, he's just pointing out what he's trying to say there. What we're not really, that's not a tracing manual. I doubt he would say everybody needs to draw like me. I haven't asked him, but I doubt he would. That book is so rich with the principles, and sometimes I have to tell some artists and say, hey, or they're new, and I have to tell them, hey, I'm about to give you this book, but a lot of people that are in your stage, they'll tend to just take the pictures and start tracing them. I want you to almost ignore the samples and his drawings. I just want you to focus on what he's writing from start to end. Just start reading it. Focus on the first few chapters that are really, you may have to reread chapter 1 and 2, but just focus on the first few chapters and think about what he's sharing as far as the definition of the caricature. What is it? What is it not? What is distortion? What does that mean? What are some examples of it? And so, in your artwork, so don't focus on the actual drawing. So I don't think if you're reading it correctly, I don't think the book would even encourage you to draw like Tom. It has it, yeah. It has drawn a lot of people towards that, but I think they're just taking this art and they love it, and it looks clean and whatnot, and they're just wanting to draw like him. But I'd rather think like Tom than just draw like him. I'd rather figure out what he's thinking and get all those theories and then let my own style. And I don't think you disagree with that. Let your own style. You know, everyone should have their own style, mild or wild. And so just you know, have fun and just you shouldn't be trying to draw like someone because you'll run out of ideas. Like you have to continue to follow that person to make sure you're drawing or keeping up to date with them. But yeah, does that answer your question? I really didn't take any of the samples and trace them. I really just took his theories and I just applied them into my art.
Yeah, it answers the question. I actually I got his book before I moved to Prague, and I was practicing out of the book and kind of not drawing like tracing from the book, but I was looking at celebrities and trying to apply the principles. But I was using the same tools that he used and all of that. And then when I was in Prague, like the first couple of years, I drew kind of just from the book, like what I was learning from the book, using the same tools. And then when I joined ISCA, that's really what changed everything for me, and it basically brought me to a point what you just described, which was like I'm taking these principles, but I can do whatever style that I want to do and still apply these same principles. What I wanted to say about Nate Cap's work, for example, or Eric Goodwin, or even your work, is there's this difference between, like, for example, Tom says it should be immediately recognizable. Well, obviously, like Nate has a different mindset or a different viewpoint on that. So there's this difference between like looking at a caricature and it instantly recognizable as that person, and then if you get closer to, like, if you get more exaggerated or more wild, you kind of reach this place where it's like implied who it is. It's not instantly recognizable, but it might take you 5 seconds, or it might take you 10 seconds, or it might just give you kind of like a feeling about that person. You can't really think of the name right away, but you know who it is. And that is really, I think, like where the fine art comes out with caricature, because, you know, it's not so it's not so explicit, you know, it's not like porn, like there's nothing left to the imagination. If you're making pieces like Nate's, like there's this moment where you have to invest some of your own experience and invest some of your own memories and invest some of your own like thinking or feeling into that piece to complete it. So there's like a little piece kind of like masterfully left out of it, to where like, and then once you complete it, it's like this moment, this like eureka moment. And that is more powerful to me than like seeing a caricature and being like, oh yeah, that's The Rock, as opposed to like looking at it and saying like, oh, and then 2 seconds later saying, oh yeah, now I see, now, like, because I've invested something into it, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's some of the little small work that we do as artists that we can appreciate the work. Because Nate, when he drew, for example, have you ever seen the Larry King caricature he drew?
Yeah.
You can tell, like, he didn't off the bat just see him and go, oh, that's how he looks. And you can tell he's like, man, what feeling do I get when I see him? So, like, he has this hunch over and he has this, like, even in his voice, like this weird monster-looking thing where he's like a swamp monster, and the way his neck is, and he's just always, like, just, like even the color, the choice of color, I think it's like a light green or whatnot.
Yeah.
And so, like, all that, like, he took, like, if you and I are taking, you know, 30 seconds to go, oh man, I see all that, and then now I really see it. Like, it's probably taken him maybe a few hours just figuring out how he can incorporate voice, the tilt of the head forward, and all the little things. Like, it's taken him quite a while to get all that and place it in one still non-animated character. Just boom, one piece. How to get all that into one piece. He's done that with most of his stuff, especially when it comes to custom, because he has the time. So it could take some time. It may not be something when he is watching Larry King, he sees that monster thing. Probably now is what he sees, but
Yeah.
what he was doing, he wasn't just going for the quick recognizability in his mind. He was thinking, man, I want it to be more in depth. I want this one to be deeper. I wanted to have 4 different levels in it, and how can I incorporate all that in there? So it took him time to, I'm sure, to figure that out, and all the placement and choices. So it wouldn't be surprising if you and I took, 20 or 30 seconds or a few minutes to figure out who that is. So I think that's the right side of how to think of or look at custom characters like that. Or even live characters versus, man, it took me 30 seconds, I couldn't figure out who that was. That's failed, or I don't like that. You need to make a better choice. Like, I don't think we're supposed to be thinking about the masses. We have all these other things and principles to be thinking about. I don't think one of them is, oh, by the way, the last theory I want to share with you is make sure you're taking a poll of the people around you, and if they have if they see certain things that you do, you need to draw them or draw that subject just like how they would draw them, or you need to make sure that most people around you think that that's recognizable before you do or whatnot. I don't think that would be helpful. Neither would that encourage growth for that artist. And second, that type of thinking, given to a culture that we're currently in or we're submerged in, that would lead us all to not exaggerate, like, period. Like, there'd be no exaggeration. Like, if you keep concentrating that, and if everyone took on that principle, I'm going to draw a character in a way that would get all my viewers thinking that's just like that person. And that wouldn't make any sense, because they, one, don't like exaggeration. Two, they in their mindset, they already have what a character should look like. They already know. They think it should be something that looks like a cookie cutter, or it emphasizes their not unique features, but emphasizes their features that subject likes. So if I don't like my nose, but I like my eyes, the artist is gonna exaggerate my eyes and not my nose. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Or they're gonna make my nose smaller if I think my nose is bigger. So if I'm thinking that way, that's how that subject feels, and I make those choices, that's called distortion. So, but that thinking goes, if you follow it can make a lot of, it makes a lot of mistakes as it goes on. It could be a lot more harmful than it is helpful.
Yeah, there's a fine line between exaggeration and our, let's say, like, feeling and observing. I think that's kind of the trick, is like to observe, but not like to keep it as subjective as possible as opposed to objective. So yeah.
And if I had the perfect student in front of me, and I challenge myself all the time, and I think it's a continual thing that I'm reminding myself of as I'm drawing. But if I had if I could describe for you a perfect student, someone that's learning, and it would be something like this, man. I'm gonna I don't care, like, whether, because there is a fine line, right? Most of our battle is, man, I know how to exaggerate, but there's a limit where I may lose the likeness. You hear that all the time, and it's a fear. It's a legitimate fear, right? I'm going to lose the likeness. I'd rather have someone that says, you know what, I'm going to exaggerate as far as I can and work backwards in a sense where I'm going, man, I need to make this choice. I need to change this and change that. I think that person would grow faster. They would come up with more creative stuff, and they'll find their way if they continue the battle. As long as they're humble and they're thinking, man, I haven't arrived. I'm still practicing, but they're practicing on the other end. They're going all out and exaggerating as much as they can, and they're not just like tiptoeing to that fine line, so to speak, because that can hold that artist back. And I try not to be on that line. I'm thinking I don't want to be on the line. I don't want to have those fears I used to have. Like, man, I'm going to exaggerate, because that could take me 30 years to get where I can get probably in 1 or 2 years if I just go wholeheartedly exaggerating. And then in that realm, I'm finding likeness. I'm finding new ways to exaggerate. I'm failing and getting up and trying again. But there's no failing when it comes to, like, I'm just going to exaggerate all I can until I don't lose the likeness. In that way, I don't think there's much experimenting going on. I don't. As far as the concentration, can they grow? Sure. But I don't think, as far as the concentration, if someone wants to exaggerate a lot and do that, I don't think that I guess their thinking is helpful as far as like, man, how far can I go to exaggerate and keep a likeness? I'd say just exaggerate, go crazy, especially when we're dealing with artists that are all around us that don't really do that. They're trying to just tiptoe, and they're just trying to please the crowd. And in a lot of cases, not in all, but in a lot of cases they are, and that hurts their personal growth. As far as exaggeration, now I'm not saying like everyone that doesn't exaggerate isn't growing. I'm saying in their personal growth, like you talk to artists and they have a desire, and man, I really want to exaggerate, but I just don't want to lose the likeness. I don't want to go and sometimes that's truthful. That is honest truth. And then a lot of times you dig deeper into that person that's calling whoever Bob. You start asking Bob questions, and you can tell you can tell real quick he made that decision 10 years ago, when he said, I don't want to do it because people don't like it. Like you'll find the truth. The truth will come out eventually when you start to dig deep and ask them why they're not exaggerating. They can say, well, because I don't want to lose likeness. When you follow them at an event, or you start digging deep into their whys, the truth is they don't want to go that route because it affects their pocketbook, or it affects the people because they love to please people. They love the applause of men and women, and they love that applause. They love that feeling they get when they get that applause.
And that fear of rejection also.
Yeah, they don't want to do that. They don't want to go through the hard pains of that. And so that's they may cover it up by saying, hey, I don't exaggerate because I don't want to lose a likeness. But the truth is they don't even want to experiment because they have the wrong thinking. They're thinking wrong about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I found that people here are like pretty honest about it. They're honest with themselves about it. Like I've heard the likeness thing before, but I've heard a few artists on the bridge just say, well, people, I want to make drawings that people like, and it's like, okay, well, if that's what you want to do, okay. But there's one guy that can only draw people from one side. Like he's been drawing caricatures for, like cookie cutter caricatures for 20 years, and he like if someone turns to the other side, he has an inability to draw someone like straight on or 3/4. Like he can only draw them from the side. And of course they all look the same. They all have the same kind of like going through the same cute filter. But oh man, that's what I'm just really terrified of that. Like I'm terrified of becoming that, so I think that's one thing that pushes me. We have a question from Chance McGee.
Hi, Matt Garcia. This is Chance McGee. I'm also a caricature artist, and my question is pretty straightforward. How do you determine how far you go with people in your caricatures? I see in probably like 90% of your work that you push it pretty far, and I'm always a bit amazed by artists like you, seeing as how you have a very unique style, and it's pushed in a way that I personally have difficulty pushing my art, just because I feel like I'm trying to meet the expectations of the person I'm drawing, as well as trying to do something which is well crafted, something that's done well. So, do you consider that at all when you work, or is it more like I am what I am, you get what I give type of thing? So yeah, just if you also have any funny stories about any crazy reactions you got from people, that'd be nice to hear too. So yeah, look forward to hearing any insights you have on that. Thank you.
And I just keep repeating it because it's so like that's what I think about when I'm walking into a gig. That's what I think about before I ever sketch and before I start imagining that person is why am I here? What's my goal? And that strangely that fuels everything else. That fuels what I choose. That fuels how I'm looking at them. Now I'm looking at them through a lens that is purely looking at them as a subject. I'm not thinking about how they're going to respond, what the person behind me is thinking. man, I got my tip jar there. There's a possibility of it being full or empty. Um, I got someone behind me taking a picture. I got someone over here videoing. Where could that go? I'm solely thinking about that person and then the energy that I'm receiving. Like you may think, well, how do you do that? I want to know that. I would revert you back to what I'm trying to what I'm sharing. What's at the heart of that? The heart of that is, why am I there? What is a caricature? What's my motive? What's my goal? Because if my motive is, hey Mac, why are you always beating up on me? Like what's wrong with making money as a character? Nothing. But if that's your top priority, how to get the energy, what you're seeing, what theory to use, what choices to make is irrelevant. If you're thinking about, man, I'm here primarily, I'm here to make that money. I'm here to primarily make that client happy. Am I cold to her? Am I cold to the agent? Am I cold to the subject I'm drawing? No, I'm not cold to them. But when it comes to what I'm going to be drawing here, I need to make sure my motives are right and accurate. And out of that, they'll be happy, hopefully. but out of that will come creativity. Out of that will come uniqueness. I've been to many like weddings, and in the receptions, they always have a band, right? There's a band playing. I've seen bands that are there only for the check, guaranteed. They're just playing. They're not even engaging. They're playing their songs that they're trying to cover or copy from popular songs. They're just playing. They're just playing. They sound great. People aren't even paying attention to the band. They're just dancing away, and it sounds just like a Michael Jackson song or whatever. But I can tell the difference. And there are a few. There are probably a handful, like 5 out of 1,000 weddings that I've gone to. And those 5, I can tell that they were there. You can say they're being selfish because they're there for themselves, but I can guarantee you those 5, they're there playing their heart out. They could get a check, not get a check. They are all in you like together. They're playing together. They're all in unison. They're all a high energy. They're there because they enjoy playing. They enjoy singing. So that lady that sings, she could be singing and nobody's in the room. She would be singing exactly how she's doing. She's singing with passion. The guitarist, the drummers, like they're just there and they're playing because they really enjoy it. And so, are they being selfish? You could say in a sense, yeah. But because of that, or through that, comes like this explosion of like excitement and entertainment. It's amazing to see someone fully taking control over that saxophone or that mic, and it's amazing just to watch and see like, wow, that person is truly in it for the music, or they're in it because they enjoy it, and they're using all their expressions, they're all of their talents are just hitting on all cylinders, and they're just going at it. Time has now stopped, and they're just going at it. That's what I feel when I'm drawing. I'm just going. Do I fail? Yeah. Do I have something? Do I have to grow? Yeah, tons. But at the moment, I'm just going at it, and I hope maybe someone was looking at it and they're entertained, they're inspired, and they see that. But if they're asking, how do you do that? It comes back to why that musician got up this morning, why they're putting on their costume, why, like, are they doing it just because the wedding planner said to go and do this or play these songs, or whatever? But I'm there, and I'm thinking, what is a caricature? What is the definition of it? Do I like that? Do I love it? Do I agree with that definition? And am I there to draw what I feel and enjoy that? And I have also I'm thinking about training. So I'm also thinking about, like, man, this art is going to go out and it's going to inspire others. So I also have a passion. I wouldn't say it's my primary passion, but my passion is when I draw this, it's going to go out and someone's going to hang it on the wall. They're going to teach. It's going to teach and like it's going to hopefully teach the culture what a character looks like. Not in a perfect way, but it's going to be out there and it's going to fight against what they're normally seeing. And I can tell that it's fighting against what they're currently seeing because of the response.
Mediocrity. Yeah.
I hear it all the time. Hey, that looks so different than what I got last year. Or you weren't here last year drawing at this Christmas party, but they had 2 other artists, and man, they were way different than you guys. Like they may not word it. Hey, you exaggerate, and they don't exaggerate. But when they say it's way different, I can sense like it's fighting against what they're normally seeing, and that's why for my company, I can only hire 3 artists out of the 20 to 30 artists that are in our city. And the ones that I stopped using, I had to sit down with them and chat with them and talk with them and explain to them, hey, this is how we're drawing. And I don't want to produce, I don't want my name on that, and neither do I want my company to be producing that. I don't want that to be sent out. And this is what we're drawing we want the art, and we love drawing characters that are closest to the definition, but we don't want to ever, like, we want to be in this type of battle where we're fighting against it, and we're also helping the culture realize what a character looks like, because that'll inspire other artists. I know I'm going on a rabbit trail, Samuel, but like that'll inspire other artists. Let's say that art goes out and it ends up in Canada somewhere, and the person is a young man or whoever, young ladies looking at it, and they go, man, I want to draw like that, and that inspires them. Now, have cookie cutters inspired artists that are drawing exaggerated today? Yeah, but that's not it's not the cookie cutter that inspired them. It's not because of that. It's in spite of that. It's in spite of that bad example of the caricature that got them into the art field, and then they realized the true treasure. They realized the true, like, where characters are exaggerated. They use exaggeration. That's what truly inspired them to take off. Yeah, was it the first thing that got them into the field? Possibly. My mom forced me to do it, but it's what truly inspires them is the art and what the keys are, the theories, and how you can grab someone's energy and place it on that page. And that's where time stops when you're drawing with those types of motives. And you can have all the theories. I can share with you all the different. Hey, I saw this, so I chose to do this. All that will go out the window if your mindset isn't right. And I'm almost like I sound like a broken record. I know it by now, but in truth, that's what continues me to grow. That's what drives me, and that's what's behind all the changings I make and the different exaggerations. That's where it starts. And I've had guys I've said, hey, this is where it starts. I'm going to keep on hounding on that. And because I fear that you won't even practice what I'm going to be teaching you as far as the choices. And I've had guys where, sure enough, months go by, they start exaggerating, experimenting like you're doing, Samuel, and like a few months later, we don't meet, I don't have any phone calls anymore from them, we don't chat. And sure enough, it's because they've gone right back into their cookie cutter ways, where they're drawing portraits. It could be COVID related. They just are down on funds or whatnot. But it really comes down to that, and I try to really cement that in their minds, because that's what's cemented in my mind, and I know that's what's helped me.
So would you say that, like, if you were to distill your main priority down to a phrase, you would say it's to draw what you feel?
Yeah, draw what you feel. Yep, I would say that. It's good.
And for me, like, I want to make a good drawing. I do want the quality to be good. But I'm sure you can agree with this just based on what I see with your live stuff, is that, that is important, that there's some quality there and some good structure there. But for me, the most important thing is like the moment, it's the feeling in the moment. It's the reaction that the people have when they see it. It's the audience reaction whenever they see kind of like how crazy and how many chances I took, and it still kind of lands, it lands well. And there is really like a big difference between, because I'm drawing next to other people, so, I look over and I see them do their cookie cutter, and then they show the customer, and, there's like almost nothing, there's almost no reaction except maybe a smile or something quiet. But then when I show I did that's like more crazy, and they have this like explosion of laughter, and they like, or they're shocked a little bit and then they laugh, or there's some kind of, there's just more of a dynamic kind of energy that happens around that moment. So for me, that's what's really important about it. It's that takes priority over technique for me.
Yeah.
If we look at Chance's work, and you can see with Chance that maybe he has a different priority because his stuff is really clean. I mean, I've drawn next to Chance. He's a good friend of mine. Yeah, I mean, his technique is superb. His lighting and his coloring is really good. His line work is really good. You'll see that too in the digital piece in there, or the image 4.jpg. Like you can see that it's really clean, and the line work is really superb. And so I'll let you have a look, or say what you feel like you could say to Chance to maybe help him think about it in a different way or exaggerate more.
My question would be, I think, is why would you want to exaggerate more? And why I ask that is because if he's saying, well, I want to exaggerate more so I can grow my business and just become more known, or just like if that's the case, like I wouldn't steer him towards exaggeration. I would steer him towards changing his why. But I would want to ask him, but if he's saying, I'm going to exaggerate for the right reasons, for the art, and just growing my business as far as income level or exposure, it's just irrelevant. I just want to grow as an artist. Yeah, I'd love to sit with them or chat with them about what he sees as unique, and then we can go to the next step, which is what is unique about that face. What are some exercises to help him identify what's unique? And I've given a few in that video I shared. Like there's a quick view where you're just glancing at them. You just glance real quick, and then you take your eyes off of them on purpose. And you think, okay, what do I remember? Okay, I remember she just had, eyes, or her eyes were blue, or her big nose, or whatever. And so, or she was, large, had triple chins, like. And so, here's some practical stuff. If I ask, what's his name again?
Chance.
If I ask Chance, hey Chance, when's the last time you drew a double chin, or you saw a double chin and you drew 3 chins? You did a triple chin. If he said, man, it's been a while. In fact, Mac, I've never drawn, even with double chins, because I'm looking through the pictures, I'm trying to figure out, and there aren't any double chins, so I can't use an example. But if he said, in fact, Mac, I've seen a lot of double chins, but I just don't draw them. I don't draw them, and neither do I exaggerate on them. And if I do draw them, meaning I actually draw the double chin, it's just more of a portrait. It's just exactly how it looks. But if he says, but in most cases, Mac, I have to be honest, I actually just draw the neck, and I don't draw I would say that's called distortion, but it's just distortion on the other end. Yeah, you have the distortion, which just goes crazy. They're just drawing. They're not even looking. They're just drawing whatever they feel, not what they feel from the subject. That's distortion. But there's distortion on the other side, where they're just not, they're just taking off things that are unique, that they clearly see. They just don't draw it because they have something else in mind. That goes back to what I was sharing in the beginning, and over. I just hound on it, but it's just they're not drawing. If he's not doing it, I'm not putting words in his mouth, but if he's not doing it because of how they're going to respond, that's where he has to attack that. He says, "Well, Mac, I just have that fear. Like, how do we get over that fear?" And that's what I would say. You have to attack that first. That's why I always have to remind myself and teach others that you have to attack that first, because if you don't attack that and overcome that, you'll never draw that triple chin. You'll never exaggerate in ways that you can come up with that we've never seen and that will inspire others. Like you'll never do that, and you have the potential to be that artist that draws in those ways, that does inspire and does teach well. But
I don't think that Chance actually has that. I would say that, like I said, I've drawn next to him a lot, and I wouldn't say that he has much of a danger with cookie cutter, because, like, for example, if you go to the one that's the image 8,
yeah,
he's exaggerated, it's a good exaggeration, and
Yeah.
it doesn't look like a cookie cutter to me. It looks like the people. I mean, I think he did a good job with that. I think that what Chance lacks is in relation to his question is he's so nice. Like I don't know what I'm trying to say is like I think he has a hard time like going full beast mode. Like um, the word I wrote down here, or the quote that I wrote down here, was take a risk on ugly. Like things that I would, like you said, a double chin, or like things that I would consider ugly, are like that would normally socially fall into the definition of ugly. Like go ahead and like push that. Go ahead and like draw that. Like I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Yeah, it does.
yeah. I think that that's Chance's thing that's like kind of holds him back or reins him in. Like he doesn't want to like hurt anybody's feelings or like, and so he kind of puts his own borders around that and doesn't allow the other people to maybe make that decision for themselves.
Yeah, I don't see any signs of cookie cutter and stuff because everything is different. So in definition with cookie cutter, it's like a stamp. I'm seeing front views. I see quarter view. I think he has the ability to exaggerate more, like we all do. And if that's his desire, because that's the key. I'm not saying like these are failed, but if he feels like, man, I'm being too nice, and I know I can grow more, I can definitely can see him growing. He can grow in a lot of areas. There's a lot of different choices. I'm looking at this one girl, and it could be like that's the angle with like that's the problem with angles, like these pictures. He probably saw something different. But I'd like to ask him what he saw.
Which one are you looking at?
The image 0. So the one, if I can read.
I got it.
Yeah, 0. So that one, she looks like she has a large nose, especially towards the end of it. And if you look at the nose on the caricature,
yeah.
it's kind of, in fact, it's actually smaller. So
yeah, it's cuter. It's a cuter version of her.
It's a little cute, and see her front teeth. She's got an overbite. Like it really goes over her bottom teeth, right?
Yeah.
And you look at her teeth, like it's very small, very petite. Maybe she didn't smile. I mean, I'm thinking the best, which is maybe that's just what he saw. Maybe this picture is exact. The photo sometimes enlarges things. Like his head probably isn't that big, but because of the placement of his head on the camera, sometimes the lens makes it kind of weird, right?
And also another one with her is her eyes look really sunken in to me, like in real life.
Yeah, and that when you do that, that's an exaggerate her cheekbones, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's an exaggerate her. And so that she has big cheekbones. So when you sink in her eyes, what happens? The cause and effect. When you know that clay theory.
Yeah.
That clay theory is going to push out her cheekbones, and so that's what's normally going to happen. And then it'll make her forehead also, when you sink those eyes in, her forehead's going to look larger because there's much more space there.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have that, and that's a right exaggeration from what I see. Like she has quite a bit of forehead on there. Very little chin. See the chin? Very little chin, small chin. But in the caricature, it's a little bit long. This way.
Yeah, and the neck is more slender as well.
Yeah, and these are all assumptions. If what's his name again? I keep forgetting. Chance. If Chance says yes to all these things, like the big forehead, the eyes sinking in, the teeth, the no chin, and the neck. If he's saying I see that's what I saw, then great, we can move forward. I just wouldn't want to quench like if he sees that and he's drawing it with exaggeration on different unique features, then that's great. Like I applaud that. Let's tell me what features you see then, and then let's see if you made the right choices based on the theories. But he can grow in that. And my problem that I face with a lot of artists is like that character that he drew with the heart on top, right? So like, was he being why did he make those choices? Was he being why did he feel like he had to be, so you call it nice or whatever, and so if it helps him be like, hey, well then just draw mean, then if that helps him, then I guess do that. I'm a little iffy about that because I've heard artists come into there and go, man, I'm just going to be as mean as I can today. And they truly mean that. Like, I'm going to offend someone. That's not what, like, we should be, that's not part of the character, vibe we hear from Tom's book. He never says that. Like, we're supposed to be thinking about, uniqueness, what's unique. We're not supposed to go out there, clearly trying to make someone upset. Like, will they get upset? Yeah. Have people torn the caricature in front of me and then threw it at me? They've done that. And at a project prom, it was embarrassing for me and him. But that's not. I wasn't there to like make them ugly. I was drawing what I feel, and if I stay consistent on that, then the people online won't be surprised. So I would ask if it helps him, then okay, like go for it. Like say I'm gonna just draw someone ugly today, but just realize that that's not actually what we should be thinking. But if it helps him, and if he can keep that to himself, then great. Like other artists don't even hear that I'm gonna go out there purposely trying to make someone ugly. Neither do the subject need to know that.
I only use that word because that was the first thing that came to mind. I agree with you on that. I want to just be clear about it. I'm not like advocating that that people like try to hurt someone's feelings, but I guess beasted might be a better word because it's like a little bit more open to interpretation. But I think what I mean, like a good example would be the piece that we talked about the most, the one with the girl with the black guy and the white girl. Like when you look at the girl, that's what I see with Chance. Like he has a tendency to go cute and like be not too gentle. Like he can go over the line where it's like not just gentle, like it's a distortion. Like you lose likeness because you're trying to make her look cuter, or you're trying to be like super gentle with her and not draw that bulb of that nose, because her nose, the end of her nose is like a bulb. It looks like potato shape to me. So I'm in that way, like it's not about like when I'm doing a drawing like that, it's not about like me trying to hurt someone's feelings. Like I'm like you said, I'm just drawing what I see and the feeling that I immediately get when I look at that face. And I'm trying to do that quick enough to where I don't think too much about like, oh, she's probably not going to want me to draw her nose big. Like I try to blow past that as quick as I can because, that just stops me up and it doesn't make the drawing look. It goes back to the cookie cutter or the cute filter if I do that. And you lose lightness.
Yeah. And so like I agree. That's I know you wouldn't have like say that. I'm just saying like if like as far as like I'm gonna go in there making them ugly, but I was just saying like if it helps him because it looks like he's on the other end where he's like if you look at that picture we're talking about, like on the guy, he was not afraid to make like all those dents in his head. See that?
Yeah.
There's like angles, a few of them. He was not afraid of that. He wasn't afraid to put the shines. He added 4 when the guy really just has 1. He had all the shines in his head, the nose. He wasn't afraid to do that. And so, but on the girl, like it seems like he just went the opposite direction. And so, like if he is thinking, man, I just don't want to. I'm okay with offending or drawing what I feel with the guy, but the girl, I hold back because it's a girl and I don't want to offend them. And then yeah, he needs to start thinking, how can I think of her not as like how she's going to respond, or think of her as pretty. If I need to think of her a different way, then I need to, because I need to find out what's unique and what's different. And so whatever helps him, he should do that. He should do that. Whatever would cause him to exaggerate more, if that's what he wants, then he should do that. And I keep going to want because that's where it's going to come down to. Like if he's on that fence where he's thinking, I don't want to exaggerate because I'll lose the likeness, he'll never grow. And in fact, you could follow him 2 years from now, he'll probably have the same stuff. You could probably look at his artwork 2 years ago, and if he had that mindset, he's still drawing the same way, maybe more cleaner, because he's really clean on the lines. So I would just say, if he's wanting to grow in exaggeration, if he's wanting to exaggerate more, I would encourage him to just go on the other end, just exaggerate as fully as he can, and then find his style within that realm. That'll get him the quickest. That'll get him there the quickest. Not what he's doing. Like if he's just going slow, so I don't lose the likeness. Away with that. Like just say away with that, and I'm gonna exaggerate. And I'm gonna find my likeness in that exaggeration, if that's what he wants to call it. Like his extreme may not be extreme to other artists, but whatever he would say is extreme, and if he wants that, because that's important. If he wants to exaggerate, because I would never say you have to exaggerate in an extreme way to be a character artist. But if he wants that, then dive in, like jump in, exaggerate, extreme, do the extreme that you would call extreme, and then in there find your way, your medium, or find your likeness in there. And don't do it at home because there's no pressure. There's no pressure at home. There's no tensions. There's no you really have to be out there. You have to throw yourself out there while someone is paying. With your tip jar out, you have to do that, and you have to pay that price. It's going to be painful, but there's no growth where there's like no pain, where it's just like comfort. Yeah. That's in every field. Like, and that would be the step. You would just that's going to cost a lot. That may cost you some income. That may because you may offend someone. You may have many fail, but so did all of us. Mm-hmm. So did all of us our first year or two, and we weren't afraid of that.
You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have to learn how to get comfortable with that.
Yeah, man. If I could turn back the time and go, man, my first 2 years where I was drawing, I drew at least 200, and then I started getting like I guess sellable. If I could turn it back and say, hey, I wish I had a trainer that said, Mac, I want you to not think about likeness in a portrait room. I just want you to exaggerate like crazy, and then in there we'll find your likeness. We'll push you back here. We'll tone you back there. We'll push that further than you already have. I wish I had that, and I was drawing some Picasso stuff. I kid you not. I wish I was drawing some crazy Picasso stuff that I personally knew was a failed caricature, like. Because he's going to have like the fear of others saying that's bad, and he's going to personally say, man, I feel like I'm starting from scratch, and I feel like I know this is a fail, like I failed big time. But that happened in the very beginning. But the versus what most of us had was like, hey, I'm going to give you 5 noses, and I want you to practice those 5 noses. And we're practicing them in like the trainer's style. Like that doesn't make any sense. You're not teaching anyone to think. You're just teaching them to draw like you draw. Like so now everybody in that booth draws exactly like the manager. Everybody in that booth draws the eyes the same way. They draw faces in the same angle. Everybody's doing quarter view. Why? Because the manager draws in the quarter view. And so like you're creating bad habits, and that you have to now later on like work your way out of. But it's like in a 10-year span. It's a 3-year span, a 4-year span. And so, but I would say the best, if he's wanting to exaggerate, just jump in like you would in a cold pool. Just jump in. Don't do your toes. Just jump full in, and then in there, find your likeness. But it's going to be painful. It will be painful.
I want to talk a little bit about jumping in because there's a couple of exercises that I do, and the one that I took from you, which was just eliminating a feature. So I would encourage Chance to do that live, to just eliminate a feature. I've done it next to him a couple of days and just experimented just to try to push it. I think he was there when I was doing that. But I think that would be a good way to kind of force himself. Also, there were a couple of things that I've done throughout my drawing career. Like at one point when I was working for Tips, which I know Chance is doing right now sometimes on the street, is I just picked a day of the week. For me, it was Monday. I called it Maybe It Will Work Monday. And I even, like the first person that came and sat down, I would say, hey, this is going to be a free drawing. I'm going to just try something experimental. It might or might not work. And I would just kind of do that in order to make it less uncomfortable, I guess. It was still uncomfortable, but it was less uncomfortable, and it made it easier for me to really push it. And then those drawings turned out to be some of the best ones. There was another time where, like, for about a month or so, like one day a week, I would just say, I'm gonna push it so much that like I'm gonna get a reject today. Like I would do it on purpose. Like I'm gonna push as far as I can possibly go to where like it's gonna get rejected, just to get myself comfortable with like getting rejected, getting a drawing rejected. You know, I don't think that that's a good practice to do necessarily. Like every day or all the time, but for me, it was something that I had to do to kind of like face the worst fears that I had, just like actually make them happen. Like, what's the worst that can happen? A person rejects it and doesn't like it and doesn't pay for it. That moment is going to last like 5 minutes of the drawing and 30 seconds after they reject it, and then they're going to walk away, and it's going to be over forever, So those were just some of the tricks that I used anyway.
Those are great tips and tricks. Like that's more on the people side, and I think it's helpful when you start learning all four personalities that are most likely out there, and you start learning how to deal with the person who is outgoing or reserved or people-oriented in task. And so, like, you start to know those personality types and just, like, how to communicate with them. And like you mentioned, like, prep them for the extreme caricature. You can say, hey, I'm experimenting today and doing this or that. So don't be surprised if you see a nose come off the page or whatever. And so just kind of mention funny things that will make them laugh, tell a joke, or whatever helps. That's great. But when you come down to sketching, you have to be focused on what your goal is. But if those little things help you and help the person, it may be too loud. At the event, we don't have time to do that a lot of times because it's just so loud. You just can't prep them for that. But if you have the ability, that's great. And if it helps you like get out of your comfort zone a little bit, that's great. I would say by all means do that and tell a joke and make them laugh. And I think Manny does a great job at that at events. He stays engaged with them. He's always talking with them, and they almost have to like it. Like so no matter what thing he gives them, but it's amazing. Like his people skills in that area, and I think it could do us all a service if we could learn that. I think we're times focused on just the art, and we forget that these are people, and it's good if we can kind of mesh those two together. It's almost like the business side. Most artists don't have business cards. Like we could all work on that too. Like we just so focus on the art, and we need agents because they are focused on the business side. So there's artists out there that are I know of one here. He's really skilled in like his technique, but he has no business cards. He never has. He's been doing it for 30 years, and he just doesn't have business cards. And he's just so focused on in more of a work trucker style, but he's just more focused on his art. But he has tons of agents. No website, but he has tons of agents that use him. But yeah, if you can use those little skills that you mentioned, a little tip, that could be helpful for him, I think, if he uses that.
Some heavy rule, like technique, like yours is eliminating a feature. Some other heavy rule, like today I'm gonna only there's always gonna be a feature that comes off the page or like sits only directly in the middle of the page. Or some days like I do, like I'm gonna make something really, really small and then something else is gonna be really, really big. That's what I'm gonna be looking for today. Or like little things like that kind of help to push it, especially the small big one, because usually that's kind of an easy one to find on people. Of course, if they have it, most people have some kind of discrepancy there in their face or their body. But man, it's really cool talking to you, and you've really been such a big influence on my work. So it's cool to like meet you and talk to you, and I kind of suspected we were on the same page with caricature anyway, but yeah, it's cool to hear you flesh out those concepts.
Yeah, and that's hard to find. A lot of times you're not going to have complete agreement with other artists in your area. So Sammy, I would just encourage you to just kind of be faithful and continue drawing the best you can. And I personally would say just try to exaggerate as most you can for your own growth and also for the just for like to combat the culture. Like, mm-hmm. I don't think I've said it before. I just don't think it's the subject's like fault. I think it's our fault. And so I did it for years when I first started. And so I think it's our fault. Like we're thinking about money and we don't want to receive that pain. We don't want someone to respond a certain way. So it's really our fault, and we continue doing that. I battle that. If you look at my artwork, you're gonna see, man, you're gonna see a glaring thing that I struggle with. It's clear, and it's gonna be like if you go to even recent stuff, like you just go to and you'll see, man, Mac is taking chances with guys. He pulls no punches, and Mac on the girls, he pulls a little bit of punches, but he pulls a little. And I'm thinking, man, that's my struggle. Like I need to not pull any punches. Like I need to not like pull back on girl or male. I need to look at them as a subject, grab their energy, and just draw. Like why do I exaggerate more on the men and the girls? I don't exaggerate as much. So like we're all battling with certain things and exaggerating, and so yeah, you'll see that if you look back. And so what I would encourage you and any others, just it's being faithfulness, because there's going to be a time where Sammy, you're drawing, and I'm not behind your shoulder, and there's no one there watching you, right? And there's no one watching me. But I would hate it if my art, which I know is a failed one, that goes out, and I purposely fail, not the accidental failures, but I'm purposely not going to exaggerate that double chin, and it just goes out, and all of a sudden, Samuel, you're on your first year, and you're like, man, I'm inspired now. I just watched this video, I did this or that. I'm gonna go out and try it, like your friend, and he's like, I'm gonna go out and try it, but in front of him is a subject that says, look at this piece I got from Houston, Texas, from Matt. And I didn't even know it would go that far. I've had pieces like that have come from all over. And they're like, can you draw like this? And like I have the guts to not draw them like that, and I can persuade them and chat with them about that. And it goes out smooth. But there are artists that can't, and they're discouraged. And I would be too, starting off. So if we stop thinking about ourselves and think about others and start thinking, man, how is this going to affect the art community? It'll affect the oncoming artists that are going to come. Like because there could be some teenagers out there that are going to blow our minds. They're going to add 4 or 5 more theories to Tom's book, and they're going to just like blow our mind. They're going to open up another realm in that field and inspire us all. But they may be discouraged when they see all these cookie cutters, and they may not even want to give it a try because it's going to be not acceptable. And they may not have the depth or the roots to go, you know what, it is worth it, and you'll inspire others. They may not have that, and they'll quit. So if we can provide that, then it's going to be helpful. And if it tempts you, Samuel, and it's kind of tough, but if it tempts you to say, man, I could lose a lot of my income. I was making I was making over 100,000 with our company, and when I started exaggerating, it just went slowly down. We got to 90, we got to 80, and there was nothing else to explain it. This was years ago, and when we realized, it's because of why I'm drawing. Like I just left the caricature convention, and I'm actually doing what I did over there, like in the field. I'm doing it, and it has to be that. And then an agent coming to me saying, Mac, what happened to you this particular year? Like what, like you changed. Like I remember seeing you like 2 years ago. I don't go to every character event that I sent you in, but you're way different. What happened? And I explained to them and said, yeah, I see that. And Mac, I love that. She was like, let's name her Victoria. She was like, man, Victoria was like, I love that, Mac. I love that. It's amazing. I see it. I agree with your stance, the definition. And it makes sense that characters should look like that. But as a business owner, I can't book you because that's not what my clientele wants. Mm-hmm. So my wife and I, we have to make a decision and go, man, it's either we continue. And she said, if you draw like you used to, then I'll be able to book you. Again, I applaud you, but if you continue in the way you do, I can't book you. So she was honest, and I see the business side of that. But I was honest with her, saying, unfortunately, I can't, because that's what my style is. That's what I advertise on my website. It's the samples that I would send you if you request those samples. And I'll continue being faithful, passing out your business card like I have been. But on the art side, I have to draw what I feel. And so unfortunately, you won't be able to use me then, I guess. And so we left in good terms, but she no longer books me. And the offer still stands. I can easily go back and say, hey, I'm going to draw like I used to. Mm-hmm. But so that's a personal pain that my wife and I said, hey, it's either draw cookie cutters or get a second job. So 6 years ago, I started working for a moving company, and but I just started doing just working 9 to 5, and just started building that income that was being slowly like diminished. So that's gonna be a personal pain that I'm not saying you have to get like another job, or I'm not sure what your financial status is or what you're making, but that could be a pain that you might experience because of our culture. And I never regret it. Like I would never do something that I wouldn't do anything different. Like ever since then, when we made that choice, so when I'm at an event, I'm just like that musician that I talked about. Like I feel like I'm really enjoying it. When I say, man, I do this for free, I would do it for free because I love it. When I say that, I truly mean it. And I'm drawing with like I have much more passion in it when I'm doing it. So it's not going to be it's not going to be like it was before. If your friend or yourself, like y'all start to experiment, you're going to see that. And if you make more, great. Like that's a blessing. It's a plus. But it might not be the other way. So yeah, that's why you have to be really rooted in what you're wanting to do.
I'm already on that path. Like I wouldn't go back to any kind of cookie cutter thing. If I had to, I would get another job. That's like, I can say that without even thinking about it. Cool, man. Thank you so much for your time, for your inspiration, and Mac Garcia, everybody.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on the show. Okay.
All right. Take care, man.
All right, bye.
Bye.